to become entrepreneurs and help them cultivate it to bring about revolutions of change. At RKU, they are the nucleus, surrounded by a circle of learning, nurtured by hands of knowledge. By giving them a global exposure, we allow understanding to seep through project-based learning. They get their hands dirty, assess real situations, unfold new theories in our labs, and find holistic answers to every hurdle that comes their way. Interweaving happiness and learning, the university provides a vibrant atmosphere to fashion well-rounded personalities who are people of thought, people of freedom. Powered by spirit of inquiry, they move into the world on wise words and firm foundations. Each day, they pave a path that arches forward for themselves and those that will follow. At RKU, we make worlds meet. We craft trailblazers who shape better futures. We look forward together, standing firm on today's lessons and the possibilities of tomorrow. For the world is not our oyster, the universe is. We are a curious lot. We search, invent, seek, explore till we uncover answers. Change drives us. From the moth to the butterfly, from the clay to the pot. That is why at RK University, we educate through discovery. We shape thinkers and self-learners, making knowledge an exciting journey. Opening new doors and steering into new horizons, our students are a generation of tomorrow, a timeless tribe of change makers. When the fire burns within them, we rouse it to scale greater heights. When ideas germinate, we support our students to become entrepreneurs and help them cultivate it to bring about revolutions of change. At RKU, they are the nucleus, surrounded by a circle of learning, nurtured by hands of knowledge. By giving them a global exposure, we allow understanding to seep through project-based learning. They get their hands dirty, assess real situations, unfold new theories in our labs, and find holistic answers to every hurdle that comes their way. Interweaving happiness and learning, the university provides a vibrant atmosphere to fashion well-rounded personalities who are people of thought, people of freedom. Powered by spirit of inquiry, they move into the world on wise words and firm foundations. Each day, they pave a path that arches forward for themselves and those that will follow. At RKU, we make worlds meet. We craft trailblazers who shape better futures. We look forward together, standing firm on today's lessons and the possibilities of tomorrow. For the world is not our oyster, the universe is.
A very good morning to all. I'm Kinjal Mehta from RK University. I hope all of you are safe at your respective places. Let me begin by briefing you about our today's session. Today, we are going to talk about business writing skills for B1 level, that is back prelims. This level is mainly for students or for those who are keen in developing their business or professional writing skills at this level. It is useful for professionals as well. Before we continue with the writing skills, I would like to give you a brief about our center. So SHTC is an English Assessment Center. It's an initiative by Center for English as Second Language, which is a language department at RK University, Rajkot. By establishing this center, RK University has become the first university in entire Gujarat to have a Cambridge authorized exam center. Now I'm sure some of you might be having the question that what exactly our center does. So we are affiliated with Cambridge Assessment English and we are authorized to conduct exams for all Cambridge qualifications that they offer. These exams are conducted in two formats, that is computer based or paper based exams. Apart from this, we also have the registration center for IELTS exams. Now you might be wondering, what about the coaching? Well, we even provide the coaching for these particular qualifications. Before moving any further, I request all of you to refrain yourself from posting good morning or other messages in the chat box. I'll be conducting or I'll be answering all your questions as and when we move forward with the presentation. Apart from that, if anything you want to know or if you have further queries, please make the use of the chat box. You can post your questions in the comment section in the chat video and I'll be answering those in the last 15 minutes of the session. Yes. So now, as you see on your screen, these exams, just like any other professional exams, these qualifications also follow certain framework for your scoring system. Now, this framework is designed by Cambridge, and as you can see on your screen, there are different levels from A1 till C2 level, right? The best part about this is that there is no pass or fail in these exams. It is you can map, by getting the score, you can map your language proficiency. And yes, of course, all the links relevant to the presentation, reference links would be pasted in the comment section. You can copy them and you can refer to those links once we are done with the session. You'll be having a video in the video link in the chat box for further explanation about this framework. So let us understand what exactly BEC or Business English certification is. Well, this qualification contains 3 levels. The first one is B1, that is Business Prelims, and that is the level that we are going to focus on mostly in today's session. This level, as I already mentioned earlier, it is for the beginners. The second is Business Vintage, B2 level, and the final one is C1, that is Business Higher. As SHTC Cambridge Authorized Center, we provide examination, registrations and coaching for all of these levels. Now the best part about this is these qualifications are recognized all over the globe. Many companies, institutes, colleges, all of them accept these certifications and it adds on to your credentials, it adds on to your professional achievements. So it is not only for students, those who are aiming for higher education, but also for professionals who would like to add on credentials to their professional growth. Now, in these certification, or if I particularly talk about BEC, all the language skills are covered, that is LSRW, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And these are all based on the practical usage that we have. So, whatever language requirement we have in our day to day life, in our professional life, we can develop by attempting to these examinations. Moving ahead, as I already mentioned, it covers all four skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So, if I go for the format, if we discuss the format, here it is in front of you. Reading and writing would be one paper, like it would be combined, and in total, you would be given 1.5 hours. Particularly about reading, there would be 7 different parts, and you can even see what the purpose is. You will be having different parts. In one part, it might be you are given some short notices, or maybe you are given a short email where you read in and interpret the meaning, guess the correct meaning. All these questions would be MCQ based, all the reading questions. Then in some other part, you might have a graph which you have to analyze or interpret and answer the following question. Some part you might have a newspaper or a magazine article which we understand. So what I'm trying to convey is that all these skills, they cover a practical aspect. So it is not only a certification that will help you to get some admission somewhere or for your studies, but it is something that would definitely be useful in your day to day professional life, no matter what field you are in. Coming to the next part, that is writing. In writing part, you have two parts, that is internal communication and external communication. We will discuss about it in detail as the entire presentation, or we are going to spend all 2 hours in the same area. So here I'm not talking much about it, but all in all, you will be required to present 2 writing text pieces. Coming to the listening part, listening will be for about 40 minutes, which includes 10 minutes of transfer. So 30 minutes you'll be going through the audios and you will be going through the questions, answering them, and you still have extra 10 minutes to transfer these questions. Now again, in the listening area, if I talk about what will be included is all 4 parts. You will have one part might have an interview, some part might just have a discussion where 2 colleagues or 2 strangers, they are discussing about a place. So these are all situations that we come across in our day-to-day life. We listen to native people talk in our professional areas, maybe some of us. So this part will help us improve in that particular area. Now the last skill, that's speaking, and it is, if you see the time limit, it is only 12 minutes per pair. What does it mean? It means that you are not going alone for speaking. You will be accompanied with a partner. So two to three candidates, they usually attend the speaking together. Speaking is face to face. So if you talk about the other 3 skills, reading, writing, and listening, it is either computer based or paper based, depending on what mode you have chosen. But speaking would always be face to face. That is, you will have to sit in front of an examiner and you'll have to face the examiner for 12 minutes. Now in this, what will be covered is you will have to go through a wide range of vocabulary and you'll have to present your speaking skills in just a few minutes, where you will be required to present your opinions, talk about whether you agree or disagree to your partner's opinion. You might be given a situation where you are required to have a impromptu discussion with your partner. So all these situations we face in our day-to-day life. There might be a session where you are required to introduce yourself, which is quite common, as we all know. I again repeat, if there are any questions you have, you can jot them down, you can put them down in the chat window, and we will be answering them in the last segment. Moving ahead, now let us talk about writing task in particular. So as already mentioned in the previous slide, writing task will have two different parts. The first part is internal communication. That is when you are communicating within your organization, within you're communicating to your colleagues itself. Now, as we all know that in today's world, most of the or maybe the most basic communications are done through emails, right? We need a written proof, we need a written communication. So this is extremely important. Like even if you are sitting right next to your colleague, any professional communication needs to be done through emails. So it need to have some writing part. So this is part one, right? You might it might include a note, a message, or an email. The word limit for the same is 30 to 40 words. Now all these guidelines, that is the word limit and the timing and all, are presented by Cambridge, and as per the framework that we discussed earlier, these guidelines are set up. But apart from that, otherwise also as we move to the task and we see sample answers, we go through the emails, you will realize that this is something that not only for the certification or for the exam purpose, but this is equally important and relevant in your actual professional life. So moving to the next part, that would be a piece, business correspondence. That would be an external communication. Mainly it will require or it will cover a reply to some mail that you have already received. So in part two, we will be writing to an external person or third party, someone who is not connected or who doesn't work in your own organization. So the language that we use for both the tasks obviously changes. If I am talking or if I'm writing, communicating with my colleague, the formality, the register that I will use will be different. Whereas if I'm talking to a completely different person, third person, the language would be different. Here, if you can see, you're required to write 60 to 80 words, right? So there are some more details or sentences that we need to add to part 2. Now, what about the skills that are tested? What skill set do we require while we are going through this? Let us go one by one. The first one is content, and of course, one of the most important. That is, if you are reading, you can already see that you have to cover all the relevant points that are required. So, if you have received an email and if you are to reply to that, make sure that you are not missing out on any point and you are not including anything that is irrelevant or that is not required. Be extremely precise and carry on with your conversation. Communicative achievement. What does this mean, communicative achievement? That is, it means that the register you use is appropriate. Means what? The level of being formal while you are writing should be appropriate. Now, how can you decide this? We can decide this by knowing that whom we are writing to, right? If I know that I'm writing to somebody who works in my department who is at the same level, the level of formality would be different compared to if I'm writing to my director or senior or maybe someone who doesn't work with me, right? So that is what communicative achievement, and we all need to develop this sense while we present our writing tasks. Moving on is organization, extremely important. Now, this is something relevant in every area, not just for writing, but otherwise also. Like, for example, right now also if I'm presenting, if I don't have a proper sequence of my points, it will be all messed up, right? So organization means that whatever you're writing is in a proper sequence. There is proper relevance between what communication or what sentences you are following. If you have written something, the subsequent sentence, the next immediate sentence should be relevant, and how you transit from one point to the another point in the same writing text. And the final point is language. Now, language, of course, it means that grammar, vocabulary. We are having we are talking about professional communication. So this is one of the most important things that we need to focus on. That our grammar, we are not using slang language, because we are talking about, again, it's a business communication. You are talking to your colleagues or someone at work and not to your friends. Okay. Now, before we start with the sample task and we go through the practical questions and see how exactly this works, I would like to repeat that if you have any queries, any questions, feel free to use the chat window, but refrain yourself from putting up any other messages other than your questions or any suggestions. So let us take an actual example. Now this is the task 1, writing task 1. Do you remember what it was? Task 1 and task 2? I'm sure you might, because we just saw what it was. Task 1 is internal communication. Now, internal communication means we are talking to our colleagues, someone who works with us. Now, when you are communicating to a person who is working within your organization, your word limit should be very, very precise. You need not add anything extra that is not required. It can be very direct, to the point, extremely to the point. Here, from exam point of view, they have given 30 to 40 words. Now, if I put it in simple language, 30 to 40 words means you roughly write 3 to 4 sentences, right? Okay, I give you a few seconds to go through the questions, and of course, even I'll read it out for you and try to understand what the situation is. Let us first just go through the first situation and not the points given below. I'll read it out aloud. You work for a finance department of a company. A customer has telephoned to say that you have charged her too much for order. Right? I repeat, you work for a finance department of a company. A customer has telephoned to say that you have charged her too much for order. Now I have a few questions. I want all of you to answer it to yourself. You can answer it in your mind. You can just think about the answers. First thing, whom are you writing to? What message are you required to convey, and from whom the message is? I repeat my questions. Whom are you writing to? What message you are required to convey? From whom the message has come? Right? Now, if you just go through the situation, there are a lot of assumptions that we can make, right? You can assume about the customer, you can assume what order it might be about, because they have not specified anything as such. So while you are attempting, you are allowed to make such assumptions that are relevant and that are required as per the task. Right? We need to be precise. That's why it's important we make certain assumptions. Now, talking about the actual real life professional communication and not just the examination point of view, even at that time, we are not required to make as many assumptions, because that time we are clear about what order it was, and also we have that factual information with us already, so we can be using that. But here, as it is not there in the question, we'll be assuming a certain facts, and we'll be seeing that in the sample answer. Let's read further. Let's go through the points. Now, if I talk about the writing part, if I talk about the exam point of view or from the Cambridge guidelines point of view, you will be given 3 points for task 1. That is for internal communication. You'll be having 3 points. What you are required is, you are required to cover all 3 points, right? So they have made our task a bit easier, but in a way, I would say not that easy. It's a bit tricky as well, because they have already given you the point, and now what you are expected to do is you are expected to cover that point but not use the same wordings that they have used, because if I write the same words, if I use the same language or the same vocab that is given in the points, it would look like repetition and that wouldn't display my language skill at all. So from the overall point of view, I would suggest that try to find synonyms or paraphrase these points and frame an answer or frame a reply. Let's go through the points. The first one is giving the customer's name, right? As I said, we'll make assumptions. So here is the first assumption. We'll be assuming any name for our customer. Second one, explaining why the customer thinks the amount is wrong. Again, now as you have said, see, just I told you about using synonyms or paraphrasing, and we can see the same thing done by them in the question itself. If you see the situation, they have used, you have charged her too much for it. They have used the word charged, right? And here the same thing, they are putting it as the customer thinks the amount is wrong. So that is a way of paraphrasing your own point. So here you are making an assumption. You are making an assumption that what might have gone wrong, and you are putting it in your answer. And the final one is asking her to check the invoice and get back to you, right? Okay, now one point that we did not read, that is write an email of 30 to 40 words to your assistant, right? So one of the questions that I initially asked is answered right over here, whom you are required to write. You are required to write to your assistant. It is extremely important to get these questions cleared in our head. Why I'm taking so much time discussing this, because if these questions and the sequence is quite clear in our head, then the task becomes very easy. Now we are required to write to our assistant, so our language would be according to that. Yes, so you are asking the final point is that you are asking your assistant to check the invoice and get back to you, right? So you are expecting a reply in return of whatever you're going to write right now. Now you can see that on all 3 points, I've highlighted the first words, that is giving, explaining, and asking. Again, while you are attempting, it is extremely important that you point out these words, you figure out what is important, because all these things, this is the area that will help you to frame your answer, that will help you to go through the decide the vocab or decide what kind of language you want to use, right? While giving an information, there are certain kind of language that you use. Explaining requires a certain language, certain kind of sentence formation. Asking, again, mostly when you know that you are asking something, means you are posing a question, right? Here it can also be that you are demanding a reply from the person, not just a blank question, right? So you have 2 seconds to go through the question again and try to remember whatever we discussed, that is whom we are writing to the assistant. What are we going to include? What is a situation that a customer had called and there is something wrong, or the customer is overcharged for a particular order? So we are talking about that to our assistant. Now what are we including in our writing? We are going to give the customer's name. Of course, we need to give the details, right? It's only then our assistant can check. So we are giving the customer's name, we are explaining what went wrong, why it is overcharged, and we are demanding for a reply. We are asking the person to check and reply. So I hope we are thorough with the question, the situation that we have in hand. I am sure many of you might be able to relate the situation to your actual real life, your work life. I'm sure not the exact situation, but you might be able to relate that this is something that, yes, we do come across in our real life as well. So let's move on and see some sample answers. Yes. Now, as you can see, there are two sample answers, and this is done with purpose. There is no right or wrong, but of course, there are improvements. The one is a better one and more preferred, and one of it is not an ideal answer or not a complete reply. Let us take a few seconds and just go through the first sample answer. I request all of you not to look what is given, what is in the second part. Just look at the first one, right? And try to recall the question and what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to think that whether all 3 points are covered, right? So you remember your points, giving the customer's name and explaining why it is overcharged and asking for a reply, right? So just go through the first answer, sample answer, and try to figure out if there is anything missing, if there is anything wrong, if the language used is appropriate. What do you think? Also, you can see that where the assumptions are made. If you see, the names are assumed. In the question, we did not have any name. We did not have Helen, we did not have Philip, we did not have anything. Here, we have assumed those names on our own. Of course, if it is mentioned in the question, we would be using the same names. And now when we talk about the actual professional communication, at that time we don't make assumptions of whom we are writing and the person's name, because obviously if we are writing to our actually writing to our assistant, we do know the real name, right? So we don't need to assume over there. Yes, so let's go through the first answer. I'll be reading out aloud and let us check if everything is okay over there. Helen, a customer rang today at 10 o'clock. She has received her DVDs but says that the invoice is wrong because it includes two that she didn't order. Please could you check this out? Thanks, Philippe. Okay. Now let us go step by step. First thing is, if you can see, we have just written Helen, right? Because we are talking to our assistant, it's an internal communication. So you are allowed to have a semi-formal kind of communication through this. Now, the first point is our first point covered. The first point, I would go back to the question, and the first point is giving the customer's name. Can you find the customer's name in this anywhere? No, right? So we have missed out at the first point. And if we talk about our actual communication, again, based on the situation, it is important. If you don't tell your assistant that who the person is, or if you don't give any reference of the customer, how would the assistant check and reply back to you, right? So you are telling the time which is not needed, right? This is something we need to focus on. We don't need to tell what is not relevant and what is not given in these points. You don't need to include any of that. You could just give the name instead of the time. She has received her DVDs but says that the invoice is wrong. Right now, this, if you can see, it's a long, lengthy sentence, right? It's a lengthy sentence. And yeah, coming back to my previous point that we had discussed, 30 to 40 words. So you can see these are short communications. And as I said, you can see these are just 3 sentences, right? Precisely 3 sentences. And each sentence is referring to one point given in the question. Yes, so coming back, she has received her DVDs but says that the invoice is wrong. I'll stop here and we'll discuss this first. So, yes, this is, I guess, communicated correctly. You are explaining why it is wrong. So, for explanation, the word used is because. Right now, when you are giving explanation, when you are posing a question, these are the indicators that would show, or you can recheck after you have written that you are going in the right direction or not, right? You are giving the reason, so we have used the word because. Other than that, you can think upon what are the other words, connectors that we can use while connecting two sentences and for giving reasons, right? Now the reason is it includes two that she didn't order, right? So the reason, the second point is quite clear and it is covered very nicely, I would say, or maybe correctly, that it says that the two she didn't order. So obviously, what she has not ordered and she's charged for means it is she's charged for something that she didn't order. Now the last one, please could you check this out? Okay, if we see this one, it's I guess incomplete information in the answer, because see, asking her to check the invoice and get back to you, you need to make an assumption. You need to give some detail about the invoice, right? You have not given the customer's name, you have not given any details about the invoice. So now, if we put this as a real life situation, you can imagine that how will the assistant check, right? What should the assistant check? Your assistant will not have any information about whose invoice or whose order we are talking about. So this is an incomplete answer. Incomplete in the sense is it does not cover all the required information to complete the task. The assistant cannot complete the task with this information. Now let's move on to the next sample answer. Again, the format is same, but the information and the language has changed a bit. Let's go through it. I give you a few seconds to go through the answer and find out the difference on your own. You will yourself feel that this is a more complete answer as everything is covered in it. Again, if you see, there are only 3 sentences. That is, it covers all 3 points. The word limit is precise, right? Okay, let us read it out and discuss. So again, same. Helen, Mrs. Janet Conway rang today. Precise, right? The first point, give the customer's name. Very, very precise. Time not required, and we do not have enough word limit to add anything which is not being asked for or not required. So the first point is covered. She has received her DVD's order number 2334, right? So you are giving the reference. Now this number could be used when the assistant wish to check the invoice, right? Yes, but, right, now we have used but. In the previous answer, if you can see, it was because we were giving the reason. Now here we are using but. Why? Because we are putting the situation in front of our assistant. We are putting what was the situation or what went wrong. So we are using the connector but. But says the invoice too, she didn't order, right? So here we are again covering the same point that was in the previous answer, but the language used or the way it is presented differs. It looks more precise, it looks more direct, and it is also more formal. And the final point, please could you check this out and get back to me by tomorrow. Extremely precise, right? You are asking, you are requesting for some reply, for some response, a check on this particular thing, and you are also presenting a deadline. That is, the person needs to complete the work within the given time. Again, this is an assumption. If you recall the question, there was nothing mentioned about the deadline that you are required to present it by this or give a deadline or anything like that. But if you practically analyze the situation and take 2 minutes to think about the situation, that what if I actually have an assistant and if I actually have to convey to my assistant all these points, what is to be done, then these are the points and this is the way you'll automatically get an answer on your own, that okay, if I don't add this situation or if I maybe don't assume this at this point, at a certain point in a certain sentence, then the information would be incomplete, right? Another thing that I would like to draw your attention is that we are adding, at the end, we are adding thanks and Philip, that is, we have again assumed our own name over here. Now, in case if for the exam point of view, you have word limit of 30 to 40 words. So let me uh, clear that doubt that some of you might be having right now, that how the word limit is counted or what words are counted and all of it. So right from the very first word, that is right from Helen till Philip, all the words would be counted, right? Also, many a times I've been asked that whether the punctuations are counted or not as words. Then I would like to say no. Full stops, commas, these are not counted as words. It would only be the actual words that you are writing over here. Now, coming to another situation that you might come across while creating a writing sample for task 1 is that 30 to 40 words is extremely precise and very limited area. So in case if you are exceeding the word limit, that is if you are going beyond 40 words, there are some things that you might avoid. That is, you might avoid saying thanks. You can just add your name at the end and you can conclude. You can just say Philip, right? You can conclude. Again, no need to use bigger signatures like sincerely yours and all of that, because that you will need more words, and it would mean that your answer will have less scope. So I hope task 1 is clear. I'll take a quick recap that task 1, it is an internal communication. We communicate to our colleagues or people whom we work with within the same organization, and therefore the communication has to be short and extremely precise and to the point. You do not include anything additional at all. No additional references also. What is not required, as you can see in the second sample answer, we did not include the timing because it's not needed, right? We did not make that assumption. It is not at all required. So do not include anything that is not required. From the exam point of view, if you see, or from the certification point of view, as per the Cambridge guidelines, word limit is 30 to 40. So do not write anything less than 30 words, nothing more than 40 words. And you are required to cover all 3 points given to you. And apart from that, of course, your language, your grammatical sentence structures and all of it should be appropriate. You're writing to your assistant means you can be a bit formal. You can see that we have used didn't, order and all. We've used contractions, right? Because you're having an internal communication, but that does not mean you completely have an informal way of writing. So this is all in all part 1. Of course, you will get a grip on it by practicing more and more such tasks and coming across more situations. We have taken a simpler example so that just to get used to the format or to understand the structure of it. But as you practice more and you get involved and start learning more about the course, about the certification, get through the examples, you get more complex situations even in task 1. Like, even if it might look very easy that you just have 30 to 40 words, there are 3 points and you just have to write or cover the same thing. But of course, as we just now only saw, 2 different answers makes a huge difference. Let us move on to the next part. Again, I would repeat, if you have any queries, any questions, doubts, anything regarding part 1 or throughout the session, please feel free to add it in the chat window. We'll be addressing it at the end. Okay, coming to the second task. I hope all of you remember what it is. If not, let's quickly recall. It's an external communication. What does it mean, external communication? We are talking or we are communicating with someone who does not belong to our own organization, whom we don't work with. So this has to be even more formal. And the word limit, as we know, it is 60 to 80 words, right? So we need to add more details to this. Now here you need additional details. Even if you see the question that is on your screen is a bit lengthy. So let's see. As we had discussed earlier, I would repeat that in task 2 or external communication, it is mostly you are replying or reverting back to some ongoing conversation. So, in the form of question, you will be given a question from maybe any of the previous mails, or you will be given just a short part of a previous mail that you might be having with any of your professional contacts, and then you are required to reply to that. Let's take a moment and go through the question, as it's a big one. We'll be seeing it in bits and pieces. Read this part of a letter from Martin Holmes, a university student. Okay, so now you have got a context, or you have got a text from university student. If you see the difference in part 1 and part 2, here we are already given the name. In part 1, we assumed a name. Here we are given the name. Okay, so the person writes, I'm 23 years old and I'm studying business administration at university. As part of my course, I have to do 3 months work experience this year. I would very much like to do this in your company, right? Okay, while we are reading the question, as I said, always I would, just a bit off track. We have been taking business communication or back exams since last 4 years, and we have been training aspirants for the same. So, with experience, I would like to say that while you are reading, never read the entire question at once. Even if it is a short question or a lengthy one, always break the question, understand it yourself, and then move ahead. Make it clear in your head that where you are going. So now, till now, we read 3 to 4 sentences, but it wasn't clear that who we are, right? What is our role? We knew that a student is writing to us, but who we are actually. But in this sentence, we can clearly understand that the person is saying, I would very much like to do this in your company, right? So you are a professional working in an organization. Please, could you let me know if this would be possible? And if so, what kind of temporary work I might be able to do for you, right? Again, just a brief or quickly we'll revise what the situation is. There is a student, Martin Holmes, a university student. He's studying business administration, and the person is writing us and requesting us if we can allow him to take up an internship or to take work experience at our company, right? The person is also posing a question. Please, could you let me know if this would be possible, right? So this is something we need to convey in our reply, whether the person can or cannot associate with us. If so, what kind of temporary work I might be able to do for you, right? Now, what kind of temporary work I might be able to do for you? Now, here you need to assume some work or some position, a profile for that person. Now, to do this, always I would recommend stick to the question itself, right? Means what? That here, before deciding what work you want to give, or before assuming random stuff that what work you want to give to that person, always see the person has mentioned studying business administration. So we would like to assume something that is related to the person's field. Let's move on. Write a letter to Martin Holmes. Okay. Again, just like task 1, here we will be having 4 points, right? We are having 4 different points. In task 1, we had 3 points. Now, if we just go to the last part, that is 60 to 80 words, which means roughly we are writing 6 to 8 sentences. The format more or less remains the same, but the level of formality, the register, that is how formal we answer would definitely change because the person is completely unknown to us. We do not know the person at all, right? Okay, let's go through the points. Informing him when work experience is available in your company, right? Now you're informing the person that when, that is, see, pick up these words as well, WH words we call it. When is it available? You cannot randomly ask the person to come and just start from tomorrow. If it is possible, that is also fine, but here they are asking us to specify a duration, a specific time, right? So you are informing him, which means that we are already answering the person's first question given in the situation. Please, could you let me know if it would be possible? Means we are informing the person when it is possible, means of course we are saying yes, it is possible. Giving details of the work experience you could offer him. So this is his second question, right? If you see, the points and the questions posed by the person are almost same, they are interlinked, right? So giving the details of experience you could offer, what profile you could offer to the person. Mentioning one skill that he will need to do this work. Now again, coming back to our assumption, let's wear the assumption hats and we will be assuming what skill the person is required. Now this assumption will be connected to what position or what profile we are offering the person. Means if you see, the second and the third point are completely relevant, right? If I'm offering the person an administrative profile, I cannot expect or ask the person to have cooking skills, right? So you need to have a sync. You cannot just take one point and then forget it and move on to the next point. No, you need to know that what you have already written or what you have included for a particular point, and accordingly your answer or your reply should progress. The last one is suggesting a date for an interview, right? Again, making an assumption, you are suggesting any date for interview. Now here again, I would like to mention that while you are making suggestions or when you are asked to suggest a particular date, always make sure that you are suggesting a future date. That is, for example, if you are writing the paper today, make sure you are suggesting a real future date, right? Do not put or assume any date that's already past and put that date. I cannot put yesterday's date or 2 months back. Try to be as realistic as possible and while including all these points, because that's the main purpose, to develop, to enhance our professional writing skills through this, right? The main purpose of BAC is not only for the certification, but also it is so widely accepted, it's globally accepted because of the same reason, that it expects you to be realistic, right? It expects you to actually analyze the situation, think it that it's a real situation, and accordingly present your replies. So I hope all of you have registered the situation and the points that we are required to cover in your mind. I would still give you a few seconds to quickly recall the situation, the points that we are supposed to cover, and then we'll move on to a sample answer and we'll see how the external communication can be put forward. Again, in the points you can see I've highlighted the most important words, because that will decide that what our language or what kind of information we are required to share, what kind of words we are required to use. Just in the previous one we saw that asking, we posed a question, we wrote the words like please, giving reasons, there was because. So all these connectors, all these words, vocab, how do we get an idea what to use? We get it from the question, pick the important words from the question and we can accordingly decide. So the first point is asking us to inform the person, right? So it has to be a direct informing a person register. Next is giving information. So you are providing certain amount of information to a person. Then mentioning what skill is needed, right? What is required. So you can, in mentioning, it could be an advice, it could be a suggestion tone that, okay, it would be great if you possess, or it could be appreciated if you possess so and so skill to take up this task or take up this profile, right? And the last one is suggesting a date for an interview, right? So you would, now it's suggesting, so please do not pose a question over there that let us know when can you come for an interview. No, they're not asking you to ask a question, they're asking you to suggest. So you have to decide a date and you have to suggest a particular date, right? I hope we can now move to the sample answer, and the situation is quite clear. Again, whom are we writing? They have already told we are writing to Martin Holmes, a student, right? So here is a sample answer. Now for this we have only one sample answer. Let's see. Dear Martin Holmes, now we'll be looking through different dimensions. The first one is we'll have a comparison between task 1 and task 2, how they are both different. We will be seeing whether we have covered all the points and whether we have covered the entire situation of the given in the question. Also, we will see whether we are meeting all the criteria, that is language, formality, all of that, right? Yes, so dear Martin Holmes means we are addressing the person with respect. We are adding dear, we are writing the entire name, right? Whereas in task 1, we were writing to our own assistant, it was an internal communication, so we did not add dear or we did not add too much formality. We just wrote the name Helen and we continued with what we wanted to convey. But here we are adding everything, and of course, this adds up to the word count as well, the word count of 60 to 80 words, right? Now when you are actually writing, and if you're not seeing from the exam point of view, then you might feel that you don't need to worry about the word limit, but that's not true. If you're not seeing from an exam point of view, or you're not thinking of it, still it is important that your internal communications are shorter, extremely precise, and completely to the point. And if you are communicating to somebody who does not belong to your organization and whom you don't know at all, then it has to be a little lengthy, but do not make it too lengthy, and do not add personal salutations or hi, how are you, hope you're fine, all that. No, because it's a formal communication at the end. So stick to the level of formality, but add more details to the writing or to your reply. Thank you for your letter, right? In the very first sentence, we can sense that we are being more formal in this answer compared to that in part 1, right? We did not say thank you or anything as such. We directly started by saying the customer's name and all the details, and that's it. But here, we are thanking the person for the letter. Then we can offer you work experience in the new financial year from May to September, right? So we are agreeing. I will be moving back and forth to the question as well as this so that we can refer to it. Now, if you see over here, it is saying informing him about the work experience availability and giving, okay, yes, when, right? The point when. So the first point is covered. You are telling the person when. Okay. If you can see, it is written we can offer, right? Obviously, one person, you can see the name at the end, Paul Verma. So one person is only replying. Still, the person is talking on behalf of his company. The person is not personally communicating or answering to the person. The person is communicating on behalf of the company. He's accepting the request and replying on behalf of company. So we, right? and it is precisely written from May to September, right? So between that duration and that duration, they are ready to offer. Okay. Now, as I said, always think, or when you are asked to make assumptions, use the futuristic assumptions. This normally involves helping to audit local businesses by calculating total revenue and expenses. Okay, again, a lengthy sentence. Let's cut it off and let's read a bit by bit and see whether we have covered everything or not. So, what was the second point? It was giving details of the work experience you could offer. Right now, for this point, I had already mentioned while we were going through the situation that refer to what the person is studying. Has it been that the person did not mention that the person is studying business administration or anything about what he or she is studying, then we could assume and we could offer anything. But here the person has mentioned business administration. So think of something that is relevant to that stream, right? So this, I will read it out again. This normally involves helping to audit local businesses by calculating total revenue and expenses. Okay, now I understand that those are not from commerce background, or those would, they wouldn't understand what is audit local businesses, what is audit, what is total revenue and expenses and all. And then you might be confused that, okay, now the person said that he's from commerce stream, so what could we offer, right? You can always stick to the question. As I always say, you can find your answers from your question itself. You can develop the entire answer from your question, right? So you can see business administration. If you do not know such heavy words or any specific stream in that area, in the commerce area, you can just say that, yeah, for the management of XYZ department, or we would like to offer you an internship in the business administration department or area that we have. It focuses on management of clients, right? These are general things that we all understand. We don't need specific area knowledge for this. Here our main focus is language and to cover all the points and communicate, right? Okay, continuing with the sentence, and you will need to be able to work with spreadsheets, right? So the entire sentence conveys what the person is required to do, what profile you are offering, and what work the person needs to do, right? Okay, they have mixed these two different points. They have mixed the second and the third point over here, that is giving details about work experience, that is talking about the profile that you are offering, and also mentioning a skill. If you figure out, they have not directly used the sentence that, okay, you need to know maybe spreadsheets. No, see how they have put it up. You will need to be able to work with spreadsheets. The words chosen, be able to work, means you should have that skill, right? You should be able to do that. Again, now they have connected two different points. When they have connected 2 points, if you see, the connector used over here is and, right? It is not possible, or it is not advisable to continue or to have the entire reply without using a single linking word. Our linking words, they help us connect sentences or words, that is and, but, or, because, if, and many more, however. So they give us a precise knowledge or idea that what the next point is going to be. Now here, why we have used and, because we are adding information. There was the second point, right? This normally involves helping audit local business and all, total revenues and all. And so after and, we are continuing with the third point, right? So when there is a continuation in points, we use the word and. Previously we saw because and but, because there was a reason or there was a situation, contrast situation, but here we are adding a point. So when you are adding, we use and. So Of course, all these things help you to score well or to put your communication, put you at ease, if I may say so, right? And develop a proper impression, because you cannot have each and every point just write the point, full stop, next point, full stop. That wouldn't be very impressive in terms of language. And when you want to show your language proficiency, or when you are communicating to an external person and you want to show your professionalism through your communication, always try to club points or maybe use these linking words. However, I would warn you, do not overuse them. Like after every sentence, there would be a linking word that would be too dominating and it would lose all the essence of your writing. Okay. Now, the last point that is covered is, if you are interested, we would like to invite you for an interview on 29 March, right? So if you are now we are giving a specific date, as I said, right? Because they were asking, the last point was suggesting a date for an interview. So we need to give, as I already said, you cannot pose a question over there. You cannot ask that, okay, when can you come? Do let us know. No, that's not done. They're asking you to suggest, means you have to give a precise date, right? Again, if you see the sentence structure, it is extremely formal. You can see that this entire reply is structured extremely formally. Compared to that, we used in the task 1, right? Also, there was one point that we discussed over there. We used didn't, right? We used a contraction. What are contractions? Wasn't, isn't, doesn't, all these, right? These are contractions. We combine the two words and make it one. But in this reply, we haven't used a single contraction. Why? Because it is an external communication. You are talking to somebody completely unknown to you. Even if the person is a student and extremely younger to you in terms of age, experience, yet you have to maintain that formal tone while you are replying, because you don't know the person at all, right? Okay, and of course, the final, you are signing off again extremely formally, yours sincerely, right? And you're writing your complete name as well. Now, you need to draft this very smartly, because you might exceed the word limit as you are writing the complete salutations and complete signature, unlike that in task 1. Here we are mentioning all of it. So that is one thing we need to be careful of. Here, as it is a formal communication, I wouldn't advise that you skip any of the salutation part, right? I wouldn't advise that, okay, if you are falling short of words or something, you can just skip writing yours sincerely and you can just put your name. That was my advice for task 1, internal communication, because it was a kind of a semi-formal communication and you were writing to person you already know. But here I wouldn't advise. Here you need to give a proper salutation, proper sign off, and use a complete name. So I hope you're following this, and I really hope that this is being of some use. It is connecting and you are able to connect to it from the exam point of view. You are getting how important this entire course or qualification is, because it will only and only deal with something that we really come across in our day-to-day life when we start working, no matter what area of work we are in or what field we are in, doesn't really matter, or what position we are in, right? So I think we can move ahead now. Okay, coming to this point, common suggestions for business writing. We discussed a lot of suggestions while we saw both the examples, but of course there are more. I would give you a few seconds to just think and recall all the suggestions or all the formats or maybe the common areas that we discussed, right? For example, internal communication, external communication, the length of both the communications, what kind of languages was used, what kind of salutations were used, uh, grammatical, accuracy that we followed, the level, the formality that we followed. I would really wish that you take some time and recall all of it so that it stays and it becomes easy. And I would genuinely appreciate, or I would genuinely encourage each one of you to, use this format whenever next time you are writing to somebody. Like if you're a student, if you're writing to your faculty, if you're writing to your professor, try to use this format, right? Try to use the internal communication format because you know the person. So try to use that. If you're asking the person something, I have seen many students or many professionals, they would just drop a one line mail or something. Try to be formal in that as well, right? If you are a professional working out there, again, I would suggest that take your time and think on writing, draft a mail. Maybe for practice, what you can do is that you can practice with your own colleagues, right? If you have attended today's session, you can discuss it with your colleague and you can practice, take up any real life work situation that you have, or any, maybe if you want to have a discussion or something, take that up and just practice writing to each other and read and give suggestions to each other. That's the best way to practice because just knowing is not enough. Let's see, understand the situation or previous mail carefully, right? This is the most basic step that we have, that we need to understand the situation, whom we are writing, whom we are replying, what was the previous mail, what is the query, what all things needs to be conveyed. All this has to be properly understood, studied before you draft your mail. The next point is know your purpose and accordingly decide the length of your text, right? Unnecessarily stretching it will not make any sense, or when you're required to give more details, just cutting out on certain details would again not help you out. Use appropriate details and check your accuracy. Very, very important, right? When you are giving a certain date, or we saw that invoice example, you need to give a proper, accurate answer. Even for the second example that we saw, you were required to give a specific, you may say, work related profile, right? So use accuracy to the point. The next one, choose a suitable greeting and sign off. Very important, and very clearly we saw in both the tasks, part 1 and part 2, we used different kind of salutations, different kind of greetings. The way we addressed the person was different. Also the way we signed off was different, right? So this is important. Whom you are writing to, accordingly it should be decided. Add linking words and phrases or any extra information if needed, right? I would highlight if needed to this. Okay, so what I'm saying here is linking words. Again, as we discussed, these are the words that will help you to smoothly transit from one point to another. Moreover, furthermore, besides this, and because, right, it will help you to transit. Now you can decide what linking word to use or what phrase to use by focusing on the main points that were given in the question, that were given in the situation, as we saw: informing, explaining, right, suggesting. So these words would help you to decide on what kind of vocabulary or linking words, phrases you would like to use. Any extra information only if needed, right? If you think that this is something that has to be conveyed, make sure you are not missing it out, right? Okay, avoid flowery languages and stick to the details. By flowery languages, we mean informal language. It both the communication formats we saw. Of course, there was difference. You might have felt yourself by seeing the answers. There was difference in the language used, the level of professionalism, formality, register that we call it in language proficiency terms. It was different, right? So that is what is focused in this point, that do not use hi, hello, slang languages, or also I would like to add, do not use abbreviations. Like if you want to write the word important, write the full spelling. I wouldn't suggest writing IMP, not even for internal communication. If you are communicating with your colleagues, yet I would say do not use that particular uh, language, that kind of language. Slang words are a big no-no, right? And stick to the details, cover all the details. The last point over here is proofread your writing. Extremely important, right? You need to proofread, you need to go through what you have written, and you need to recall yourself that whether you have covered all the points, whether the language is not too formal, whether the sentences are not too complex. This is something commonly happens with us when we are trying to write a professional email, right? We engage into professional writing. We want to impress the person, and in that dilemma, or in that thought, we use extremely complex words and extremely complex sentence structures, which maybe we might not understand as well. So try to keep it reasonably formal. Do not think of using extremely, formal words or hyphened words which you might not understand, and do not complicate a sentence too much. Keep it to the point. So this will come when you proofread. Now in proofread, do not just proofread your mail, also proofread the previous mail to which you are replying, or the situation to which you are answering or replying. So I guess we have covered quite a lot today. This was, I would again remind you that today's session was for beginners, for students who want to pursue further. The certification would definitely be helpful, and also for those professionals who are willing to, develop their professional communication skills. This is the first step for the same. Our tomorrow's session would be a bit advanced. It would be in the same area, that is business writing skills, but it would be a bit advanced level, right? So professionals and students aiming for higher certification, it would be extremely useful for all of them, right? I'm sure you are having a few questions, and during the entire session, you might have added your questions to the chat window, and we'll be taking all these questions soon. You still have some time. You can go through, recall the questions, recall the presentation, and ask whatever questions you have. Another thing I would like to again highlight is that we have been posting certain links in the chat window. They are all the reference links. Of course, writing cannot just be achieved by theoretical aspect. It needs to have a practical aspect as well, and it needs a lot of practice. One way of practicing, I already told you, that you can practice with your own colleagues, with your classmates, whomever you are connected to. Have a habit of just pick up any situation, decide on any situation, and try to communicate through professional email writing thing, right? And apart from that, You might have received a link that is write and improve, right, in the comment section. So you can open that and you will have different levels. There are three different levels. When you open the link in the site, you will be able to see that there are three different levels for that writing practice. So you can opt for whichever level you feel comfortable, whether it is easy, intermediate, or advanced, and you will have such situations. The way we had two situations today, you will have similar situations over there. You can write your, you can frame your answers, you can write it over there, and it's going to be checked, right? That's the official Cambridge site, Write and Improve. You might have the link. Also, you need not worry, as we will be sharing all the links at the end. Like after tomorrow's session, we'll be in a follow-up mail. We'll be sending you the links, all the reference relevant links. So in case if you have missed out copying them today, saving them today, you will get it, do not worry. But I'm just adding how you can use these links, right? There would be links you will get that would describe more about the exam, the framework, different levels. That is, in today's session, you will receive the links, you might have received the links that talks or that explains more about the B1 level. Again, I would repeat, it is for the beginners or first level of back qualifications. And in tomorrow's session, you will be receiving it for the B2 level. That's a higher level than this one, right? So you will be getting the links for both. And yes, of course. And how can you decide which level you want to opt for? Is we have a diagnostic test that is again designed by Cambridge. So we'll also be sending you, like after tomorrow's session in our follow-up mail, we will be sending you the diagnostic test link. It is all it's 25 questions roughly, all MCQs. You are required to attempt those questions and you will get a score on the spot. So there's no negative marking. The good thing is, yeah. So you can get the score and you will get an idea that based on the score, we can decide which level you fall into and which exam would be more suitable or which certification would be more suitable based on your proficiency level. Okay. So yes, I do have a few questions and some of them are already answered in the chat window, yet I would see. The first one is this webinar helpful for layman? Yes, of course, this is helpful for everybody, as I already mentioned, not just students, but even the certification, like not just the webinar or coaching, but the back certification will also be helpful to you in your professional enhancement, in your professional growth. The next is the IELTS coaching center in RKU. We do coach for IELTS exam as well. Professionals working in universities are eligible. Yes, very much. Everyone is eligible. It's as I'm repeatedly mentioning it. It's not only for students. It is for professionals as well, right? Because it includes our real life, day-to-day life communication skills. So it is very much useful for them as well. And even the certification, if you gain, it would definitely add credentials to your portfolio. Next is brief the eligibility step-by-step by guide to complete this course. What are the benefits? Okay, the eligibility and step-by-step guide, you will be able to find it through the link, right? So the step-by-step guide is we will be attaching a registration form in a follow-up mail along with the diagnostic test. So you can take the diagnostic, you can inform us about the score that you have received. Based on that, we can decide that what level, like business English back, which level, B1, B2, C1, what level you are eligible for. And you can fill up the registration form, you can send it us back, and accordingly then we will communicate to you about the further proceeds. Benefits, again, I'm discussing that it would be useful. The certification is valid all over the globe, not only for pursuing higher studies, not only for students, but it is recognized by many companies, many organizations across the globe. Whether you're working within India, whether you're working, planning to work outside, the certification will hold value and it will definitely add on to your resume. What is the fees of the exam? Fees of the exam depends on which level. Based on the level, the fees changes. The B1 and B2. B2 will have higher fees compared to that of B1, right? So the fee structure and all, again, it would be informed to you through a mail. This test seems similar to IELTS. What is its validity period? Like it is 2 years. Okay. Yes, IELTS is valid for 2 years, but I'm extremely happy to say this that the back qualification is valid lifelong, right? You get a certification and that certification holds value throughout your life. So it is not like that after 2 years the way you need to reappear IELTS if you're planning after 2 years of exam. It's not that way. Even if you want to use the certification for going out or want to use it in your professional life or to add the qualification in your resume, you can do that even after 10 years. It will still be valid enough. So yes, the validity is lifelong, unlike that for the IELTS course. And similar in the sense, of course, these are both language exams, language tests. So they have all four skills covered, but I wouldn't say they are completely similar. The format more or less can be same also, but honestly speaking, I've been teaching both. Back covers more of practical aspects. All four skills, when we go in detail, it is something that you can really go out and use it when you are sitting on your work desk and we are working. All these skills would be useful to you. So it's much more relevant, I would say, like in your day to day life. What do we have to do? Let us kindly know. I'm not having any idea. Okay. Uh, can we get a certificate by attending the webinar? No, you cannot get the webinar. You cannot get a certification. It was an informative webinar, right? And what you need to do now is material and links. As I already answered this, it will be shared to you. Please brief step-by-step guide if possible. I mean, I'm not all aware about. Of course, this was just one step towards spreading awareness that there is something like this available. And as I said that it's gaining more and the certification is gaining more and more popularity now. So definitely, I would say that you're one of the early ones to get to know about this. And of course, it's always beneficial to be the first ones. So you will get a step-by-step guideline or how to proceed. The first step is by after tomorrow's webinar, when you get the follow-up mail, do go through the links, do go understand the format. Again, if you're not able to completely understand, we are there to help you out. Do write us back. And yes, take a diagnostic test without fail. At least you get an idea, right, what your score is. And then you can send us your score. You can send us a screenshot, mail it us about what your score is, and accordingly we can take it further. We'll guide you further what level and how you can proceed with it. You can fill up the form as well. Coaching class will start in your center. Yes, we will be providing coaching. How we will go about it, that will again be informed to you once we receive the forms, right? So as of now, I would like to inform that we have decided 9th May to be the last date to fill up the forms. We are having the exam in September right now. We have a specific calendar, Cambridge calendar, and we follow those dates. So specifically we take on those dates. So right now we are having it on 5th September and we need to close down the registration sooner. You can send us the registration forms by 9th May. You will receive it after tomorrow's session. So if you are interested, at least take the diagnostic and fill up the form and send it back to us. And then we will tell you about the coaching or how we are going further or how you can proceed with it. What are the best possible tools to learn paraphrasing? Very nice. And how to start the journey into the course, how to go step by step, what are the essentials? Okay, again, how to start with the journey and step by step, same thing, give the diagnostic, send the score, fill the registration form, and we will be there to help you out, right? Yeah, possible tools for paraphrasing is extremely important because that is something you'll need a lot in your writing. For paraphrasing, you will be having a link attached to your chat window. That's for grammar or maybe for activities. These are the two links you will be having. You might get it in your chat box. In case if you're missing out on any links, please do not worry, as we'll be sending it to you through the follow-up mail, right? So you can get it from there as well. All the links that are being shared today as well as tomorrow. So yes, that grammar link, you can go. There are sessions, there are different concepts, very nicely explained, very simple, and you can take up exercises over there. Then there are, of course, the common thing is YouTube videos, but again, I would suggest you go through the professional website, that is the official Cambridge website, and use those tools because they are freely available, so why not? Right? And apart from that, the paraphrasing and the other aspects of the course, we will be doing it once we start coaching for the course, right? So that time all this will be covered. What if we want to write more than 40 words? No, you cannot write more than 40 words. If we see from the exam point of view, you will lose marks. That's as simple as I can put it. Do not use more than that, and you are not required because you're given 3 points, 3 sentences, that's it. You don't need to write anything more. No additional information needed. And I guess it's good. You're writing less means you're committing less mistakes. So you cannot write more than the given word limit. You might lose on the marks. Is it mandatory to write in British English while examination? No, not compulsory. But for any formal exam, professional examination, I would strongly recommend that either you use British English or you use American English. Do not mix up, right? Stick to one. Whichever you are comfortable, stick to one. There is no compulsion over here that you have to use British English or American English or anything as such. But in terms of being professional, otherwise also in your day-to-day life, stick to one format. Okay. So we can refer. Next is, could you share the details for future exams and study material and share the information about speaking part when it's going face to face? Okay. Okay. So about the speaking task, it's not like IELTS. It's not on a separate date. Will all be on the same day. All 4 skills would be conducted on the very same day. Right? So the speaking, reading, writing, all skills. So the face-to-face interview or the exam part will also be on the very same day. And the other details, as I already mentioned several times, it would all be shared with you. You can go through the links and you can have it done. If we would like to learn the reading, writing and speaking and listening, then please suggest the link for applying. So you have the Cambridge official link, official site. You can go through that site. It will be shared. Link will be with you. A follow-up mail will be dropped to you with all the details, all the links and what steps are next and how can we take this further. I hope we have covered almost everything and there are no more queries. And I really hope to see you all for tomorrow's session as well to get an advanced look on what B2 is like. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll meet tomorrow as well.